Hi everyone, welcome to the Bali Business Club podcast. Today we are with Semilir Susilar, who is our notary of the Kosong Satu Group, of which I'm the CEO, and not only us but a lot of people. And we've been working with you for quite many years now, and thank you for coming. So today we'd like to talk about what it means to be a notary, what is a notary, what a notary does, and the different intricacies, legal intricacies that people don't know about or don't understand very well. So we can explain how to buy a land, how to sell a land or lease or sublease. We won't go too much into the PMA, like the company, the corporate side of things, but more, more of an approach to the real estate side of things. So, welcome. If you can maybe introduce you a little bit, so our viewers can understand who you are.
So my name is Semilir Susilar. I have a full name, really long name, Igusti Ayumadi Semilir Susilar.
Yeah, okay. We're gonna write that down somewhere.
Okay. So I was born in Denpasar. I'm Balinese.
Yeah.
So I was born in Denpasar, and now my office is in Tabanan.
Okay.
But my working area, so in one province of Bali. So even if my office is in Tabanan, I'm allowed to make a deed like in Badung, in Denpasar.
Sure. So your office is in Mungu, right? It's in Sese. I mean Mungu, at the north side of Raya Canggu. I mean, I know you call it Tabanan for the Regency, yeah?
Yeah.
But it's not in the actual Tabanan city. It's very close from
it's in the border
between
Tabanan and Badung.
Okay. And so just to get back quickly on what you just said, so as I was told many times, I know many people wonder, a notary that is based in one specific regency, some people think that they can only work in that regency, or like make for example, a sale agreement in that specific regency. But you actually can do any regency?
For a notarial things, I can do in any regency in the Bali province.
Okay.
But for my other title, not only notary, I'm also an PPAT, if you ever heard that. PPAT is the official to make a deed related to the land.
Okay.
Land ownership. Yeah.
So PPAT is real estate, notary is corporate, or how would you say it?
PPAT is related to land deed that is registered in BPN.
Okay.
Let's say land for lease, it's not registered at BPN. BPN is land office, right? It's notarial deed.
Okay.
But if it's freehold transfer, sell and purchase on freehold, it's PPAT things.
Okay. So I remember you told me that not too long ago, and actually I didn't know. So just to sum up, tell me if I'm wrong, but just to sum up what you said, when you purchase a land, if someone does a deal freehold, for instance, then the agreements, which is called the AGB, Acta Jual Beli, correct?
Yes.
The act of the Sales Act, is registered in the government, in the BPN. BPN is the land office,
Yes.
But when it's a lease agreement, it's only registered in the notary.
Yeah,
correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
What did you decide to become notary and not a dentist or anything? Flower shop, or I don't know.
Okay, so why I become a notary? It's influenced by my father, actually. Yeah, he's not a notary. His profession wasn't related to law at all. But maybe he saw my potential at that moment in writing. I like to write. I like to read. And after I graduated, as most of the teenager after the high school, I cannot fully decide where to go after this. And
like most teenagers.
Like most teenagers. Some option given by him, by my father, and the most possible at that moment, according to myself and the condition at that moment, is to go to law school.
Okay.
And then after 4 years, studied law faculty,
Yeah.
and I started to learn what I can do, what my preference at that moment, and considering my ability to write is better than to speak.
Okay.
Yeah. So I decided to study again at the Master of Notary school.
How many years study to become a notary?
4 years at law school,
Yeah.
and then 2 years in notarial master degree.
Okay. Oh, interesting. I'm learning things too.
Yeah.
It's cool. All right, thank you for that. So, well, let's dive right in. Let's talk about real estate. Okay.
Okay.
So, as you know, we do a lot of real estate transaction because I get
Yeah.
to see you at least once a week. Yeah.
Yeah.
Should organize a desk
more.
for you in my office, maybe or more. Yeah. I mean, we have a workflow that's very, very well, smooth now between you and us. But a lot of people have questions that, for us, it's quite obvious. So let's talk about the key steps into a real estate transaction. Let's not go to a freehold right now. Let's stay in leasehold because this is what most of our viewers will be interested in, seeing that this podcast is in English. But we can, briefly talk about freehold afterwards, or compare what the differences are. But let's talk about lease also. How does it work? You have basically who contacts you, the buyer, the seller. What are the steps after that?
Okay, so who have to contact the notary? It depends on the agreement between the buyer and the seller. In this case, the lessor and the leasee. Yeah, if we talk about lease. But normally, because the cost of the notary is under the cost of the buyer, the client.
Yeah.
So normally, the buyer has more rights to decide
Of course.
to go to which notary.
Yeah.
And then once you decided to go to this notary, for example, you can tell the notary the intention.
Yeah.
If it's freehold or leasehold or anything, you will.
So all the details of the deal, basically. That land that will be leased for whatever years.
Yes.
Let's say 30 years with an extension of this and that.
Yes.
And the price,
payment plan, etc.
Okay.
And then when you have agreement between the buyer and the seller, the landowner, we can start with the pre-agreement or MOU just to lock that deal at first. And then they put deposit.
Yeah.
Just to.
In good faith.
Correct.
To lock the deal.
The deal, at least the price and the payment terms. That's the most important to be locked.
Yeah.
Because after that, we have to do a due diligence, right? And it will take some time to do that. Due diligence itself is to check if this property is clean and clear.
Yeah.
Normally, notary will do a formal due diligence only. Mm-hmm. The formal due diligence is related to the documents related to this property, the land certificate. Mm-hmm. If it's a lease transfer, then the master lease agreement.
Yeah.
We also need to check the zoning information of this property, so it will be.
Keep on the steps, and we'll go back to the zoning in a minute.
All right.
Yeah, we'll have like a special 2 minutes about zoning after that. Yeah. So once you do the due diligence, then what happens? So zoning. I guess
certificate.
The land certificate. I guess also if the certificate has not been used as a collateral at the bank, for instance.
Yes.
To borrow money.
Yeah.
What else is to check? The zoning,
land certificate, and the land and building tax arrears.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the formal due diligence.
Okay, and also you check, of course, that the paperwork. I know from experience, a lot of the deal that we make, the name of the owner on the certificate is not actually the name of the person we deal with, and the reason being that person on certificate, in many instances, has passed away.
Yeah, we have
remember
to check.
How many times we had that? You and me.
We have to check that as well. If the owner listed on the land certificate has passed away, of course we need to ask them to process the inheritance documents. So
Yeah.
we will know who has the right of this land, who has
Yeah.
the right to lease it out
Sure.
to you.
Yeah, and in most cases they don't have this paper, so we have to
Yeah,
we
yeah.
have to do it. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. How does it work? I want to take those. Okay. So the different steps is basically introduction of the terms between the buyer and the seller to you. Then what's next? Then agreements, like pre-agreements.
Pre-agreement,
Okay, so a
MOU,
pre-sale
whatever.
agreement or pre-lease agreement. And once everybody is okay with it,
Start the due
sign the agreements. That can be online, I understand, or does it have to be?
It's just
It's an
underhand
MOU, yeah?
agreement. You can sign it by yourself. It doesn't need to be in front of
In
the
person.
notary.
Okay. So that agreement can be done online, and then down payment is transferred. So the down payment is transferred to your escrow account
It
or to
depends on
the
agreement
seller.
of both parties.
It depends on the seller. It depends on the agreement. What's the safest option? Legally is there something written in the law regarding the down payment?
No, it's just the common how we do it.
So at the discretion of the different parties, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. But if there is a problem on the due diligence later on, if the money has been sent to the seller has to give the money back, which can be tricky.
Correct.
In some cases, yeah, because they've spent it.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. So you have so the pre-agreement, then the due diligence, and then the final agreement. That's basically the steps. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So let's go on this. So the pre-agreement basically is let's go on the pre-agreement. Yeah, or we can call it sometimes MOU, which is Memorandum of Understanding, or LOI, which is letter of intent.
Correct.
Yeah? And all of these are the same, and they have a legal value. Is that correct?
Yes.
Even though it hasn't, does it have a legal value if it hasn't been done with you? If I write, for example, a letter of intent here right now, and I give it to my seller, if I buy his land, does it have a legal value if he has signed it?
As long as no parties deny it, it's a good.
No, but it's good to know because, and myself, I do it as well. I sometimes don't go through the notaries to do the pre-sale agreements, the pre-lease agreements, sorry, because everything has to be done in a hurry. I don't want to miss the deal or whatever, so I block a land with a small. I mean, that's what I do. Maybe it's not the right way, but I block a land with a small DP, small down
and you
payment.
will receive a small receipt.
Get a receipt that money has been paid, and then I call you. Yeah, that's basically what I. Okay, so this is legal. I'm reassured now. It's okay. Okay, so that's the pre-sale agreement or pre-lease agreement. Let's talk about the due diligence a little bit in depth. So how does it work? When you do have to do due diligence on a specific plot? What do you do exactly? What's your step by step? What do you do? Who do you call? Do you call the VPN? Do you call your mother? Do you call who do you call?
Okay, so the most important is that I have to receive the full documents first. Yeah, so I can check whether the land certificate and the land and building tax number is on the same property. Sometimes people just have too many lands, so they send different documents.
Okay.
Regarding.
So you check all the numbers.
So
on the tax, the certificate number is written, I guess.
Yeah. We have to check that at the tax office.
You check the tax office.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll receive all the documents, and then I check if the name on the land certificate has passed away. As we talked before, we have to take care of the inheritance documents. But if there is, so we can immediately check the land certificate at the land office to check if there's a mortgage note on this land, if there's a dispute, blocking, or etc. in the land certificate. Also to check if the data written on the land certificate is in accordance with the data at the land office.
There can be a discrepancy?
Yeah, it's small chance, but that overlap or something like that.
Okay. And then regarding the zoning, so that's come from the BPN?
No, the zoning is from PUPR.
PUPR, sorry. BPN, So what is PUPR?
That's the official who release the zoning of one regency.
So PUPR is the zoning body, yeah? And then BPN, as I understand, is the land office.
Land office, correct.
Okay. But there are two different bodies, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so you check at the PUPR the zoning. And so let's talk about the zoning a little bit. Yeah. So what are the difference? And we'll have either a podcast just about that, or sorry, I'm looking at the camera. Podcast just about that, or also a blog post maybe on one of our websites. I know we already wrote one, but we never published it. So the zonings I know in Bali, the zonings I know by colors, right? So green, yellow, blue, red, whatever. So can you walk us through the different colors that the zoning have, and what they are and what is allowed to do on it?
Okay.
So let's sum it up for the most obvious one that's are in Bali.
Yeah. But before we talk about that, you have to know that the zoning information in Tabanan will be different from zoning information in Badung, will be different from zoning.
How so?
Because it's a regency regulation.
Okay.
So Tabanan has its own zoning information, Badung has its own. So let's say in Tabanan, the color of tourism may be a bit purple, but in Badung it can be pink.
That explains it. Because that's so funny. I had no idea. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I know people say it's pink zone, and I hear other people say it's red zone. And I'm like, yeah, okay, pink, red, maybe the printing machine, the printer wasn't right. Yeah, okay.
So don't rely on the color.
Okay. So
if you have different printer, it will be different color
so
too.
Pink, reddish is tourism. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So what do we have? We have green.
Green, obviously, we cannot build on it.
So green is agricultural, yeah?
Agricultural also has many different types of agricultural. Okay, so commonly pink is tourism area.
Pink is tourism, and usually it's a strip of maybe 1 kilometer from the coast inland. So
Mostly.
If you have the ocean here and the land here, that's like 1 kilometer of land following the coast, right?
I'm not sure regarding that.
I think about yeah.
Yeah.
Like in Kedungu, for instance, it goes from the ocean to our school. Our school is not in the tourism, unfortunately. It's just 50 meters beyond, yeah? So that's probably 1.5 kilometers or something. Well, it depends where, I guess, yeah?
Yeah.
But from what I've seen so far, it's around that size, yeah? Okay, so pink is tourism, and then we have yellow.
Yellow is usually for residential.
Residential.
And then red is for business.
Okay,
or
so
sometimes it mixes between business and residential zone.
Okay, so I think some people misuse orange as red. They say orange is business and red is tourism. I've heard that before. Yeah. So maybe again, this depends on the regency. Yeah?
Yes, it depends.
So we shouldn't rely too much on the color.
Yes.
But look what's written next to it. Okay.
Right.
So, but basically, let's forget about the color. We have agricultural, residential, business, and tourist area.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go over these four. So agricultural, we've been over it. It's green zone. Yeah. It's what we call green zone. Cannot build.
Or maybe it can be built with a certain
very small percentage.
Yes, small percentage, and the use usually for residential.
Yeah, I know the Balinese build on green zone. They don't care. Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me if I'm wrong. What I was told is that so all the land in Indonesia is green by default. Okay, and then people build. I mean, people ask for to change the zoning. I've done it before. I've done it in Sumba many times, but in Bali anyway, they have to change the zoning. Can happen or cannot happen depending on the quota of green there is in the regency, and if there's not enough green, blah blah.
Yeah.
But what happened ultimately, is that some houses or some business, some whatever, are built on the green zone without permit, and what the PUPR does, it looks at satellite photos when it's time to update the zoning of the area, look at satellite photos, and whether the zoning is green, however has been built, turns into yellow or something like that. That was what I was told. Pagede told me that.
I cannot agree on that things. Yeah, it's not my.
That's not. That's
my
not. You haven't heard
yeah.
it be done like this, no?
No.
No. Okay. Well, maybe I have some more information you don't have. Okay. So the yellow is residential.
Yeah.
So what percentage of the land can be built when the land is yellow? Depends
It
on
depends.
the.
It depends. Sometimes it's 70, 75%.
70, 75.
Yeah.
So it depends on what? On the regency?
On the regency, and normally the local, for example, if there's close to temple or something like that, that might affect the.
Okay. Yeah, I know, for example, in Kedungu, on the east side of Kedungu, near the ocean, it's actually one river away from Tanalot. So there are some specific regulations regarding the lands and what can be built or not, and how much in that specific area.
Height of the building.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess it's a case by case, yeah.
Case by case, very case by case.
And so business. What is business? Business zoning.
The red.
That's your red.
Yeah.
The one I heard is some people say it's orange.
Orange.
But orange red, yeah.
Yeah.
So what can you do there?
You have to specifically check
for the type.
The type of the building.
The
type of business that you will do there.
Okay.
But if it's red zone, it's normally almost all of the business can be done there.
Okay. And tourist zoning?
Tourist zoning also quite a lot of lease. I'm not sure.
So the most open to anything is the tourist one, if I understand correctly, yeah? You can do nightclubs and these kind of things, yeah, in tourist zoning, yeah? But maybe cannot open a nightclub or in business area, or is that, it depends on the area as well?
It depends on the area.
Okay. Well, we need a notary to check. There is, like always in Indonesia, you have the law, and then it's the whole Indonesia should be gray, actually. You know, like
that's why we have to check it at the official who issue that zoning information.
Okay, so the PUPR of that specific area. Yeah? So you have one PUPR by regency.
Yes.
Okay, understand. Okay, so we at the zoning. So zoning is part of the due diligence, and then in the buying process or the purchasing, the acquiring process for lease or sale, what's the next step? The due diligence comes clean, then I guess we are measuring the land, right?
Yeah, can be. It's optional, actually. It doesn't have to remeasure.
Yeah.
If it's accepted by both parties as it is, then it's fine. But mostly you have to do remeasurement when you lease part of a big plot of land.
Okay. Yeah. Because from experience again, a lot of the measurements that are on the certificates were measured long time ago with a tape, with a rope.
Yeah.
And they go, okay, so like 5 by 50, that's 250. And it's never like that because now we have satellites. So I've had instances of deals in Sumba where there was over a hectare difference. When I was buying a few hectares of land, and the owner of the land would say, yeah, it's around 9.5 hectare.
Yeah.
And then we measure it's like 6.3, or something completely different. So the advice here again for our viewers is to always.
The advice, yes.
Always remeasure, yeah.
Always.
Never trust what's written on the certificate. In I would say 50% of the cases it's not accurate from my experience.
Especially if the land certificate is old.
Yeah, exactly. If it's old, it's almost 90% chances that it's not accurate. Yeah, and you don't want to pay for something that you cannot buy. So you want to pay only for the land that you actually have. Yeah. Okay. All right. How long does it take?
To do the due diligence.
Yeah, sorry, before we go there, after the measurements and when everybody's okay, then we do the
same.
actual lease agreement
Yeah.
where you signed.
Yeah.
And that's at that event, people have to be present in person in the same room
Yeah.
on the same day.
On the same day.
Can you talk to us about that a little bit?
Yeah.
I know we've had a few conversations in the past.
Yep. Because notary will issue an authentic deed.
Yeah.
The lease agreement will be an authentic deed.
Yeah.
This authentic deed will have proper and perfect proof as evidence of your transaction, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the purpose you go to notary is to make a good proof later on for 20 years, dozen of years of your lease period, right? And the authentic deed issued by notary has to have a power to prove that this person is really coming and signing to you at the specific time, specific date, specific place.
Okay.
Yeah, so that will be guaranteed by the notary.
Okay.
That way. Yeah.
But why? I know you. So, but do they have to be in the same room at the same time, or it can be on the same day in different locations?
It's ideally.
Yeah,
it has to be the same time.
I know ideally, but I'm not asking you ideally. I'm asking what does the law say regarding that?
That's the law says.
Same room, same place.
Yeah.
Same place, same time. Sorry.
Same time. Yeah.
Okay. What was I going to say before? So they sign, people sign, and then the last payment, the balance payment, is transferred to
the seller.
The seller, not to you, yeah, not to
No.
your escrow.
No.
We've been there too, yeah, you and I, too many times.
Yeah.
So the last payment, so the down payment has been paid priorly, and then due diligence, blah blah, land has been locked, and then at the very last step of the process, the balance payment is transferred directly to the seller.
To the seller. Because it's safe. The due diligence is clear anyway. You can transfer directly.
Exactly. What is the percentage of the down payments compared to the global price of the land?
Oh, it's case by case and depends on the agreement of both parties.
So that whole process, how long does it take? What's the different steps and generally like from your experience, from the moment you get a phone call or WhatsApp, like we need a notary, to the moment you don't hear about these people again, what's the duration of that process?
Most of them is not in my control, the dealing to collect the documents,
Sure.
write the documents, but what I can predict is the due diligence.
Sure.
How long it will take.
Yeah.
For due diligence, it will take like 7 until approximately 14 working days.
Okay.
And then for drafting, for the very first draft, it will be easy according to the pre-agreement that signed. So it might take like 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
After that, we will send it to the parties to review, and then it depends on them if there's many updates have to be done.
I have some stories here. Okay. So basically 2-3 days for you to draft the agreement when it's not crazy complicated, and then whatever time for the parties to agree on the different clauses that are in agreement, and then there's a back and forth with you because as you correct them as they change, the clauses or come. Of
course, I have to confirm to the other parties as well if these parties also agree with the change requested by the other parties.
Yeah, because usually these people don't talk to each other and you. They talk to you and then you talk to the other one and back and forth. Yeah. Okay. So that can take a few days, up to a week, or even I've seen even longer than that. I've seen 2-3 weeks. Yeah. Depends also on how responsive they are. It depends if there's a time difference.
Time difference. Yes.
Yeah, time difference is a killer. Because if it's abroad, And then the measurement takes a few days to book the team. And then once everything is agreed upon and the land is measured and everybody's okay with all the clauses in the contract, then you sign, and then this is just the time to make the appointment and sign. Yeah.
Yes.
So I mean, on a average deal where everything goes more or less according to plan, there's no craziness around, and the paperwork, the original paperwork is here and doesn't have an inheritance problem or a tax problem or whatever. How long would you say it takes? A couple of weeks?
3 weeks.
2 to 3 weeks, yeah? 3 weeks?
2 or 3 weeks.
Okay. Yeah. The longest deal you ever made? How long did it take? You're still doing it?
I'm still on it. From April, it's just because it's an off plan. So between the seller and the buyer and the builder, they have to deal with, which is not in me, but they have to deal with after they get a conclusion, and they will come to me with the result.
Okay. So off plan. So we talked mainly about land here, but like, how do you do your due diligence when it's a villa? You go check if the toilets are working, and
that's why notary only do a formal due diligence. What I check is usually the SLF or PBG, if it's registered.
So, hold on a second. SLF or PBG?
Yeah.
What are those?
Those are the building permits.
Yeah.
Before we know it as IMB, if you ever heard that.
Correct.
Yeah. And couple years ago, they changed the regulation to SLF.
So, from my understanding, the PBG is done prior to building, and the SLF is done after building.
Yeah.
However, what I was told, I think by some top brass from PUPR, is that you can only have SLF on buildings that were built prior to the IMB change.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you cannot like build now and say, it's okay, I'll do SLF. I mean, people do it, but legally you shouldn't, correct?
Yes, legally you shouldn't.
Yeah.
Ideally you have
do it.
Yeah. Again.
I know. I did it. Okay. And okay, so so please tell me again. So you for the building, for a villa, for instance, if someone buys a villa or a restaurant or whatever, what's when there's something built on the land? So the difference is the building permit, or there's more to check?
Just the building permits, the addition in it.
So all of the above for the lands, all that we mentioned on the land, plus the building permits.
Plus the building permit.
So zoning, everything.
For your information, not all of the building has a building permit on it. So it's not a deal breaker to not having building permits.
As long as all parties agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
As long as both parties agree.
And they don't so just to be precise here, they don't have a building permit because the owner of the land and that building didn't apply for a building permit. Not because it's authorized to have a building without a building permit.
Yes.
Correct?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, sure. So to check the SLF and SLF/PBG, how long does this take?
Oh, it's easy now. We can scan with barcode if there's
It's
a barcode
all online
already, or if there's only registration number, we can check it online. If this registration exists, and it's done. Okay,
so it doesn't extend the 2 to 3 weeks time that we talked about. Okay, and let's talk about freehold a little bit. Okay, so we went to leaseholds because most people lease land as foreigners. Yeah,
as foreigners.
Because that's completely legal and authorized. So tell me about freehold as far as legalities towards purchasing land for foreigners.
For foreigners.
By foreigners.
Okay. So freehold, it has different types of freehold.
Yeah.
There's different types of freehold. There's HGB, hak pakai, hak milik, which hak milik is only for Indonesian.
Yeah.
Yeah. But HGB, it can be owned by a company.
Yeah.
Even if it's foreign capital company, PMA. And hak pakai can be owned by a personal foreigner, but it has some requirement to
like
to
kitas, have a working permit and such. Yeah. So let's talk about the first two to start with. So hak milik, in translated, is the right to own. Correct? Okay, hak milik. Yeah. So that's only for locals, for Indonesian citizens,
Yes.
and that's your basic purchase of a property like we have in any country. Yeah. I'm Omri. I want to buy this land. I'm doing a hak milik on that land. However, in Indonesia, only Indonesian can do that. Yeah. Okay. Then we have the option, the alternative to that for foreigners, and that is talked about everywhere, is for a PMA. So a PMA is a foreign capital owned company. Okay. I don't even know what PMA means.
Penanaman modal asing, so foreign capital investment.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So for a PMA to purchase the property in lieu of its shareholder. So I'm a foreigner. I'm going to incorporate a PMA. That PMA is going to buy that property.
Yes.
Correct?
Yeah.
However, so from what I know, and we have some stories about that, you and I.
Yeah.
From what I know, so it's not a full purchase. It's actually HGB means hak guna bangunan, correct?
Yeah, correct.
So, and that's the right of using a building, or using a
building on the land.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not actually a real purchase of the property like the hak milik, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a duration attached to that. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, the duration, if we talk about duration, of course, there's a duration of 30 years, but you can extend it.
Yeah.
And then after the extension, then if your company still exists, still following the rules of Indonesian, you can renew it and extend it again. Okay.
So let's give dates and numbers and duration here. So when a PMA, from what I understand, when a PMA purchase a property, it will have a 30-year right of use of that property.
Yep.
Yeah. And that 30 years can be extended twice. Once by 20 years, so that's 50 years, and another time by 30 years, so that's 80 years total. At which point, and this is where we have some common history, at which point, from what I understand, and correct me again if I'm wrong, the law is a little bit blurry.
Yeah.
So some land office will tell you, no problem, I will extend it after 80 years, no problem. And some of them will, there's no law about it. Law is not black and white written in the book of law on Indonesian properties. So we don't know, so we might not extend it. So is that accurate? Is that the correct picture of
Not really, but from my understanding, from the information I got from BPN officer at that moment, you still can have the right as long as the company still exists, still following the Indonesian rules.
Okay.
Maybe you need to relinquish first, and then you immediately apply to get the rights again on the land.
Okay, but I can see that you're not sure as well. Yeah. Because you say maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
So again, it's not black and white, is it?
Until now, I haven't read.
Well, you're younger than 80 years old, so by a bit.
I haven't read specific regarding how to renew it later on after these 80 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, from what I was told by various notaries in the past, is that some BPNs were okay with it, some weren't. And that would create an issue even before the 8 years, at the moment of the Purchase Act, because the due diligence it would be part of the deal, and that would be a make or break during the due diligence process. I mean, basically, if I example that we all know, so we had this person purchasing an HGB from a PMA. So his PMA was purchasing an HGB from a PMA, but instead of having the full 8 years, or maybe like 79 years or 78, he ended up having like 50 plus.
Yeah, what is left.
What was left, And his notary, when doing the due diligence, and this was not told to us, to that person in advance, so it was a bit of a surprise, Okay. However, because he had given a down payment, a quite substantial one, it created an issue because the seller didn't want to give the money back. He said, well, it doesn't matter, you can extend it, so it shouldn't be a problem. And the buyer said, no, because my notary said, and my lawyers said that it wasn't a sure thing to extend it. So, so that's,
that has to be clear in the beginning when we sign the pre-sale agreement.
Yeah. Okay, so that's something that should have been cleared even prior to sending a down payment to that person. Okay. So it's not very clear either by the lawyer, is it? Like many things in Indonesia, unfortunately. Okay. So hak milik. So we've seen hak milik. Hak milik is the possession of a land by a local person. HGB, HGB, we say in Bahasa, it's by a PMA, so a PMA purchasing a land. However, in my opinion, it should only be considered as an 80 years lease, and not something further.
Something different than between HGB and lease rights. If it's HGB, you can put it as a collateral if your company needs a debt, for example.
Okay, that's interesting. So
but
that's
lease,
very
you
interesting.
cannot.
Yeah. So if you borrow money, if you want to raise debts, borrow money from the bank, if you have a lease agreement, bank will say no. If you have, if you're a local person, if you're an Indonesian and you have hak milik, if you own the land, then bank will say yes, but they will also say yes if your company has an HGB. I didn't know that.
Also for HGB, for example, at the end, when you sell the land, before it ends, you sell the land, you can use the market price of sell price of land. For example, the buyer is local Indonesian, so it doesn't matter how many years left. But when it's lease,
the market price of freehold. Sure. And so the trick to avoid that pitfall is basically, so let's be very, very clear. If I have a PMA, and that's important, if I have a PMA and I purchase a land, my PMA purchase a land from a local citizen, Indonesian citizen, then it's turned from hak milik into HGB, HGB, hak guna bangunan, and then the 80 years countdown starts. Okay, and if Roman over there has a PMA and his PMA buys my HGB plot, he will inherit the number of years exactly like on a lease. He will inherit the number of years that's left. And if he sells it again to Gawain, who is over there, not playing with his phone, he will inherit whatever is left from that, and so on and so forth. So, and the only way to break that Machiavellic spell is to sell to an Indonesian and that sells back to you. Right?
Can be a
that's
good
legal.
Way. That's legal.
So just to sum it up and make it clear, you have a PMA, you buy your land from a local person, you have your 80 years countdown starts. Let's say you spend 5 years or 10 years with that land and you want to sell it, but you want the 80 years back, So you sell it to a local person.
Change into hak
milik, and then you buy it again, or someone else buys it and it goes, and it's 80 years again. Now the downside of that is that you have to pay tax twice.
Yes,
basically
3 times.
Income tax. pay too much income tax. Okay.
Income and buyer's tax.
Uh,
There are two tax in freehold.
yeah, there's
unlike
the seller tax and the buyer
buyer
tax.
tax,
So there's one too many anyway. Yeah. Okay. Okay, interesting. And the last one, the hack Pakai. So you want to tell us about the hack Pakai?
Hak pakai, you as a personal can have it as long as the purpose of this hak pakai is for your residence, not
Yeah.
for your investment, not for your business. And it has to be in the form of land and building with the value of 5 billion minimum if it's in Bali. It will
Okay.
be different from Java or anywhere else, but in Bali it's 5 billion.
Okay, so if I'm a foreigner, I have a working permit here.
Working permit, yeah.
Oh, I mean, sorry, you need a staying permit, not a working
Yes.
permit. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's the kitas, not the imta.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kitas is the staying permit, residency. Yeah.
Yes.
And imta is the working permit. Yeah.
Okay, so
Correct.
staying permit.
Yeah. So you need a staying permit, and you need to you can buy a land, so it becomes hak pakai for a minimum of 5 billion rupiah.
Yes.
Okay. And in which case, so hak pakai in Bahasa means the right of use,
Right.
right? So it's like a foreigner freehold. Type. Yeah.
The same, it has limited
So
time. as
from
well.
what I remember, long time ago, correct me if I'm wrong, about that hak pakai business, there is it's not. I mean, it's considered under the freehold. However, it's not a forever thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is like
Only hak
HGB.
milik.
Only
hak
hak milik is forever. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anything that's related to foreigner is not forever. Yeah. Smart, very smart. I think it's written in the constitution, Indonesian constitution, that the land of Indonesia cannot be owned in any way, shape, or form by a foreigner or foreign entity. Yeah?
Otherwise,
Otherwise there's no Indonesia anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about for this hak pakai tenure. What is the duration and its extension, potential extension?
first application you can get 25 maximum.
25 years. Okay.
And then you can extend for 20 years.
Yeah.
And then renew it, just like HGB. You can renew it another 25 years.
Okay. So HGB was 30 plus 20 plus 30 equals 80.
Yep.
And hak pakai, so me with a kitas, is 25 plus 20 plus 25 equals 70. And from what I know, at the time of renewal, you need to have a kitas.
Of course.
Yeah, because otherwise they don't renew, yeah?
Yes.
And after that, we are in the same situation as the HGB. Might be extendable or might not.
Yeah.
I mean, you can apply,
You cannot.
but then the terms can be different. And who knows anyway what will happen in 70 years or 80 years. If the law has changed, then, whatever. I want to go back a little bit on the lease process, we talked about everything for freehold. No, tax, we forgot about the tax. So the income tax for leasehold and freehold.
Okay.
Let's talk about tax a little bit, yeah? What is the law? What is the customs? What are the customs? What's happening in real life? So for leasehold,
It's 10% of income tax only.
paid by?
Paid by the landowner. It's income tax. The landowner received the money, so he has to pay some tax.
Okay, so the seller pays the 10% income tax on the deal. End of story.
End of story.
That's
Otherwise, it's agreed.
That's the law.
That's the law. Yeah.
Does the law say the seller has to pay it, or does it say someone has to pay it and you guys have to agree who is going to pay it?
The law says it's the seller.
The law says seller, yeah?
It's the seller.
So unless there's an agreement.
Unless there is an agreement.
Okay.
Even if the buyer is willing to pay it, it will be paid under the name of the seller.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Because from experience again, I mean, I don't remember one time where the seller actually paid the 10% when the seller is Indonesian. Except for that very specific land deal that we are doing now, where the seller is he wants to pay his tax, blah, blah.
Yes.
But 99% of the sellers a lot of them don't even know they have the 10% to pay.
That's
and
correct.
when we come to the signing, it happens to me a few times.
Yes, that's correct.
On the Legal Legends shop on the shortcut,
Yes.
we came to sign, and you were there.
Yeah.
You did the deal, yeah?
Yes.
And remember that Papa, yeah, that guy?
Yeah.
And he said, okay, so the tax. And he goes like, what?
Yeah.
And then a new nego happened at the notary's signature.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And so, okay, so on a legal standpoint, the seller has to pay the 10% income tax. Normal, he gets the money, so he has to pay some tax on the money he receives. But in real life, in many occasions, many instances, the deal is the buyer also has to cover the 10% tax for the seller, or sometimes you have half. Or
sometimes they just manage to get more price, so that
it's
it
absorbed in the
covers.
price.
Yeah,
absolutely. And that's on leasehold. On
freehold.
On freehold,
there's two tax to be paid: the seller's tax and the buyer's tax.
Seller's tax is
2.5% of the value of the property, or from the NGOP. If the value is lower than the NGOP, then we will use the NGOP.
Okay, hold on a second.
Yeah,
that's too many acronyms in one sentence. So you have on freehold, and it's the same for HGB, I guess, yeah? Or it's different? Yeah. So freehold, HGB, Pakai, same tax scheme?
Yeah.
Okay. So on those three, freehold that covers HGB, so PMA buys, a company buys. Pakai is a personal individual with the right residency papers buys the land, or what do you miss? Or hak milik, when a local person buys the land. So you have two types of tax. You have the seller's tax, who is 2.5%, and the buyer's tax, who is 5%. That is 5%. So a total of 7.5%.
Yes.
Yeah, which was changed about 7-8 years ago. I remember, because before it was 10%. You weren't born.
Okay.
Before your time.
All right.
I was already making deals. Yeah.
Okay.
yeah. I was changed. I remember because we were doing business in Sumba with our friend Hussein, my partner Hussein. And in the beginning it was 10%, and they changed it. So probably around 2013 or something like that.
Oh yes, 5%.
We were just born. Yeah. Okay. And so what you were saying about the NGOP, so we don't even have to say it. The NGOP is, correct me if I'm wrong, is the official land value from which the land tax, so not the income tax, the land ownership tax is calculated.
That's
from, okay? Yeah. And that's usually very, very much below the market price, yeah?
It depends in which regency. If it's in Tabanan, yes, it's way below. In Badung, it's so-so.
Yeah, where people usually buy, yeah?
Yeah.
So basically what you were saying is that the tax is calculated on the highest of both.
Yes.
Yeah? Either the deal price or the official land price for the tax office, yeah? Okay. So we've covered taxes, okay? Let's go to POAs.
POAs, yeah.
Power of attorney. So what is a power of attorney?
Because to sign a notarized deed, the parties has to be present in front of the notary. Like we just said. So many times, one of the parties cannot come in person.
Yeah.
So he has to give a power of attorney to his partner or whoever who is ready to be present in front of the notary to sign on his behalf.
Yeah. So, and that power of attorney is a piece of paper that says, I have the power of signing from my friend, basically, or something similar.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So now, regarding the making of that power of attorney, so first of all, can the seller and the buyer do that?
Can.
So both parties can do a power of attorney if they want to. Okay. So a deal can happen without neither the buyer nor the seller,
Yeah.
basically, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So they can, and in order to do that document, so who does that document? You draft it?
I can help to draft it.
Yeah.
If the parties has a lawyer who assists them, they
Yeah.
can.
Or they can do it themselves.
Yeah, they can do it themselves. But the power of attorney from the seller side, it should be more formalized, more legalized
Than the buyer
than
side.
the buyer side, because from the seller side we have to secure it, as the buyer will lose their rights, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. If we don't secure this power of attorney,
Yeah. And there's a bigger risk.
Yeah, big risk.
So by securing, you mean the power of attorney should be notarized?
Legally, it has. Ideally, it has to be legalized. So
Okay.
a notary witnessing, he is signing this
Okay.
power of attorney.
So they put the apostille.
If it's made abroad,
Yeah.
POA that made outside of Indonesia has to be legalized, and apostille to be legally in Indonesia.
So what is apostille? Please explain apostille.
Apostille.
It's like a stamp, yeah?
It's the stamp.
Like the stamp of the notary over there, yeah?
Yeah, over there. And in Indonesia, if you want to sell your property in France, maybe you have to give a power of attorney with legalization from notary.
Yeah.
Because your notary in France will not recognize me.
Sure.
Sure.
Because laws are different.
Law is different.
Yeah.
And this apostille is to legalize my legalization, actually.
Okay.
It's double legalization.
Okay. Okay. So the seller needs a stronger POA than the buyer.
Yeah.
But if they are both in Indonesia, a notarized, okay. So
it has to be legalized.
So the seller has to be notarized no matter what.
Yes.
Okay. Whereas the buyer can just sign online.
Underhand agreement, digitally signature is
Yeah.
fine, because in any way it will be under your friend's name.
The
rights. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. What is your view on using the services of a lawyer to do land deals? Is it useful? Is it overkill? Or what do you think about that as a notary? Without regarding your self-interest, what do you think? Like objectively, what's the good practice?
Yeah, in the practice, in my opinion, if you want to do something complex, big, and for example, you're doing your PMA, doing some business on the property, it's good to have a legal advice by a lawyer, because a lawyer can help to do the due diligence more properly from material side. For example, they can check on site. Meanwhile, notary, no. We just check the documents, right?
Notary is not allowed to go check on site? Or what do you mean?
Based on our rules, we just do formal due diligence.
Okay.
The formal ones.
Unless you're asked to or paid for to do that?
No, we can't do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's only paperwork.
It's only paperwork.
Okay. Yeah. But the lawyer can go on site.
And
check like the donation to the Banjar. Banjar is
local
Banjar is the head of the village, yeah? So the local regulations are very, very specific, endemic to that specific area.
Yeah.
That's what a lawyer does, yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Especially when you do certain business, a complex business on that.
Sure. Okay. I think it's it's a good transition now to talk about the difference between a notary and a lawyer. Yeah. So if you can elaborate on that.
Okay. So notary basically is independent part.
Yeah.
On the transaction. Yeah. So we don't, even if the buyer pays us our fee, we don't stand for the buyer only. We have to
be impartial.
Okay. And we protect both parties.
Okay.
Meanwhile, if the lawyer, they can act on one party's behalf to protect one interest.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a notary doesn't take sides. A lawyer is obviously taking the side of whoever pays them.
Yeah.
Lawyers.
Of course.
Well, you wanted to be a lawyer first, or you knew you wanted to be a notary? When I met you, you were a lawyer.
No.
When I met you, you didn't have the notary
License, yeah.
license.
I was
very early days, like century ago.
I finished my notarial school, but I cannot open my own office before 27. So I
really?
work with a notary at the moment.
That's the official in Indonesia. No notary below 27 years old?
No,
really?
can't apply.
So I can't. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that information. I think we've covered a lot of things here. If you see there's something that I missed, or if you want to say something more about something, feel free to let me know. What would you say are the biggest challenge for? Okay, I'm a foreigner. Me, Omri, I live in Indonesia. I've been here 30 years, so I know. I learned some things today, but most of what we discussed, I knew about it because we've experienced it together or elsewhere. Yeah. But a lot of people, a lot of our clients, for instance, at Kedungu Real Estate, the real estate agency we run in Kedungu, or even at the Kedungu Fund, they don't know about the laws here because either they are abroad, they are located abroad, or they just come here on holiday, or it's their first purchase. Even a lot of people that live in Indonesia, live in Bali, don't necessarily know about the law because it's their first land deal, and they are in a different industry, or they want, So, what would you say? What's your advice to those people? Like, what as a foreigner, what would you say as a notary? Sorry, what would you say to a foreigner? The legal pitfalls to avoid, the challenges that they will face, and tips and tricks that you can tell everyone.
Okay, so first is to get clear information from a compatible person, from a notary, from a lawyer. It's a good, not only from real estate agency. Sometimes not all the sales understand the importance of due diligence, because the different point of view, they just want to sell. Meanwhile, notary has to secure the transaction, or the lawyer knows the law, of course. And in my experience, there's quite a lot of investor who just appoint someone to represent themselves in buying property or leasing a land, and they don't really involve in the process of due diligence, especially.
Okay.
And when there's a problem, or something happens not in their expectation, they will blame on the notary or the agency property or something like that. It's just because less of information that they have during the due diligence process, during the notarized process.
Okay. And so about that, are you liable as a notary? Do you have any liability? Like if you make a mistake, for instance, what happens? Who is liable for that? A lawyer is not, because he's a consultant.
If there's, I don't think if we do a proper due diligence, we provide the due diligence report, and the parties agreed on that, accept all the rights and the obligation, there's no chance of mistakes. It's all the agreement. If the parties accept, they sign.
Okay.
If they don't accept one of those conditions, they can refuse to sign, and the deal is canceled.
As long as everyone signed and everybody has accepted. So the mistake can be in drafting incorrectly the contract, or the parties not to read thoroughly the contract.
But the notary will read it during the signature.
Correct. Okay. Correct. I know.
That's why they have to come.
Ages.
Take ages.
Please don't read that contract again. Okay. I understand. Okay, I'm gonna come back quickly on what you just said about real estate agents and lawyers and notary. So again, talking from experience, and we have a real estate agency, so I know what I'm talking about, and I know what the market is, and I know how the industry in Bali function with real estate agency. Well, don't trust them, you know. Don't trust any real estate agents. There's a lot of kids out there that don't know what they're talking about. They're just here on holiday and they just get the good. They speak well and they have a bit of a address book, so they end up being real estate agents for one of the other agencies. The only person you can trust is the notary. Lawyers make mistakes also. You can trust them to a certain extent. It's good to have the opinion of a lawyer, but I personally almost never use a lawyer, but I have the experience here. So the notary is, in my opinion, the only person that you should trust because again, you guys are not taking sides.
Yep.
Yeah. The real estate agent, however nice they will be, they will only think about their 5% commission.
5%,
True?
yeah.
That's 5% in Bali, right?
Yeah.
That's the only thing they will think about. They will tell you whatever you want to hear to close the deal. That's the only objective, the only goal of the real estate agent is to close the damn deal. That's it. Whatever it takes. I know them. I know all these guys, you know. I'm not gonna, spit on all my colleagues over there, but a lot of these agencies are perfectly fine. You take the big names of the agencies. Okay, I'm gonna name a few here: Kibarer, Bali Omimo, Propertia, Luxindo, of course. My good friend Teito. There's a few more I forget, but all these agencies you can trust.
Yeah.
Never ever trust some freelance real estate agent you find on Marketplace. Marketplace from Facebook usually is where all the BS lands and property.
Yes.
A lot of them are advertising land that actually are not for sale, just as a bait. Okay. So it's cheaper than the other agencies' land, so they get the client in, and then they smooth talk them into buying something else because actually this land didn't work. I've seen so many crazy stories. Some land, you go there, you see the owner, blah 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 blah, only to find out 2-3 weeks later that the brother of the owner had no intention to sell. In which, how many times that happened,
Yeah.
So there are so many stories out there. I would say, so I'm an investor as well, so I as you know, I buy a lot of land, and I would say 80%, 70 to 80% of those deals go well, and 20-30% when we buy a land from someone, there's something wrong that makes the deal go south.
Yes.
And so, I'm an experienced buyer, experienced investor. Imagine those guys out there that just arrived in Bali and their driver tell them, "Hey, my brother-in-law has a beautiful villa. Can I show you?" Okay.
Yeah. Even the worst. One of my client, it's not a land, a long-term lease. It's just 2 years rental of villa, and they pay to someone that is not the owner of the villa.
That's a good one too, yeah. Every crazy story is out there somewhere. Someone has experienced it, I've heard so many. I've experienced crazy stuff, I almost got killed once in Sumba for not agreeing. Yeah, we said. Yeah. For not agreeing with the owner. They wanted to sell us a land at a ridiculous price. I said, sorry, it's too expensive. We're gonna go. I said, no, you're not gonna go. And they had machetes, and they were like half drunk and doing betel, and I was safe. Yeah, that was very scary. Our driver Robertus, I remember he was like he was whiter than me, you know, as I was, yeah. And we managed to almost escape, you know, like not running, but we weren't very far.
Okay.
So yeah, that was a bit extreme, of course, but that was, you know, adventure investing back in the day, like 15 years ago, yeah. But yeah, so don't trust anyone but your common sense and, you know, and the notary. That's basically it, right?
Yes.
Lawyer, of course. I mean, some lawyers are very, very good, yeah. But also, I know some notaries and some lawyers are corrupted by profits. I won't name names here, but I have a list like that big of notary and lawyers that you go to them and they tell you, no, but okay, that deal, not sure. But however, I have that deal here from my neighbor, and I can introduce you. Happens all the time. Yeah. Not to me, because you know, I'm not born yesterday, but I have many. A few months ago, someone came to me with this story.
With this story.
Yeah, not even a few months, a few weeks ago. Anyway, so I think that's it for today.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Yeah. It was great to have you with us. I hope you come back. I'm sure, because we
for
haven't
the deal
talked
or for this?
for many things.
Okay.
But we haven't talked about many other things, and I'd love to do another podcast with you, namely companies. So it was on my list here, but it's becoming a bit too long. So like, you know, the process of incorporation of a PMA, the inbrang. Okay, inbrang is a big mystery. We won't talk about it now. It's called inbrang, INBRENG. It's an old colonial Dutch law that has stayed, and I let you Google it. Hey, if someone can explain what inbrang is and put it in the comment, I will buy them 5 beers. Boom. It's said. 5 beers to whoever can explain inbrang to me. I want to hear about crazy stories also. Please put in the comments the best story, the best crazy story. I will buy a pizza and a beer. Yeah? There we go. Crazy story about real estate, yeah? Of course. So thank you very much.
Welcome.
Everyone, camera here. Or here. Or both, I don't know, it's on my head. So thank you guys for following this podcast with us. You can see in the description below, you will see the link to the different podcast platforms. So you are on which one of them now, and you'll see the other podcast platforms. So we're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, we are on Apple. Go in. And we're going to upload also to Facebook and some of them, when it's not too long and not too heavy, to Facebook, and Instagram is too long and too heavy, so Facebook only. Maybe we'll do a website one day.
Being done right now.
It's been done right now. Oh, surprises every day. Thank you, sir. All right, thank you very much, everyone, and see you at the next podcast soon. Well, we won't tell what it is. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Pa. Thank you.